Hello, everyone. Just like every day, I was scrolling through a group and came across a post that had received thousands of likes, shares, and comments. It was a story shared by an anonymous woman with a mysterious ending line that left everyone curious. Her story went like this. I still remember that day vividly. The wind howling through the old oak trees on the university campus I once called home nearly 20 years ago. The sky was gray, and I, Natalie, returned not to relive fond memories, but to attend the memorial service of an old friend who had just passed away. I had no idea that this reunion would open an entirely new chapter in my life. I had been married to David for 18 years, a calm, steady marriage. No storms, but no sparks either. We loved each other like good friends, nothing more. Everything changed when I ran into Ethan, my college sweetheart, the one who had vanished without a word. Ethan was now a lecturer at the very same university, looking more mature and seasoned. He approached me at the memorial with a soft gaze that hid something deeper, something I couldn't quite grasp. I never thought I'd see you again, especially not here, he said, his voice low and gentle. I simply smiled, hiding the whirlwind of emotion rising within me. But then, the inevitable happened. After the memorial, Ethan invited me for a walk around campus. Our conversation began with old memories, but soon drifted into more intimate topics, emotions, choices, regrets. Ethan confessed the reason for his sudden disappearance back then. His family had gone bankrupt. He had to leave the country abruptly for work and didn't want to drag me into the chaos. He never forgot me. I tried to deny my feelings, but in the days that followed, we kept in touch more and more. From emails to late-night calls, Ethan gradually stepped back into my life like a strange, familiar breeze. One day, while David was away on a long business trip, Ethan showed up in the city where I lived. He said he just wanted to see me once, nothing more. I wrestled with myself, but eventually agreed to have dinner with him. That night, over wine and words that seemed to touch my very soul, Ethan held my hand. Natalie, your eyes, they're still the same. Are you truly happy? I didn't respond. I just looked into his eyes, and in them, I saw myself, the girl I once was, still there, never gone. The memorial ended as dusk fell behind the oak trees, leaving we with a nameless emptiness. I stood by the window of the conference room, watching the crowd slowly disappear. Ethan came up behind me, silently, as though 18 years had never passed. Care for a walk? He asked. I looked into his eyes, hesitated for a moment, and nodded. I knew that by stepping out that door with Ethan, I was unlocking something within myself, something I had locked away for a long time. That evening, I returned to my hotel with a tangled heart. Ethan had touched a place deep within me, a place I thought I had forgotten, or forced myself to forget. In the days after, we exchanged simple texts. At first, they were casual check-ins. Then the conversations grew longer, more vulnerable. I found myself eagerly awaiting his messages, like a child waiting for handwritten letters. One day, he texted, "I'll be in your city next week. Can I see you?" I stared at the message for a long time. Fingers hovered over the keyboard, then pulled back. But eventually, I replied, "There's a little cafe by the river. Wednesday, 4 p.m. After that coffee meeting, I told myself I shouldn't see Ethan again, but the conversations continued. Long late-night calls, sincere questions about my life, about David, about emotions I had forgotten I ever had. Then one day, David announced he was going to San Francisco for a 5-day work trip. Normally, I felt indifferent when he was away. I'd gotten used to being alone. But this time, his absence created a different void. One more dangerous, one more real. I texted Ethan just one line. "If you want to see me again, now is the time." I thought that night with Ethan would be the end. A single mistake, a moment of weakness, a time when the heart won over reason. But it wasn't. I found myself craving his voice, the peace he brought when reading a book aloud, the comfort of his soft laugh talking about a burnt omelet. Ethan didn't rush. He didn't demand. He just showed up, like an old habit returning slowly, steadily. When David returned, his schedule was packed. He left early, came home late, and Ethan started visiting during the day, first once, then twice, until it became routine. I knew I was risking everything, but not once could I stop my heart from racing every time I saw Ethan. I was living in two worlds, one with a devoted husband who still asked if I wanted anything to eat, who still rested his hand on my shoulder each night out of habit, and another with a man who could take my breath away with a single glance. Ethan. I thought I could control it, that I was still sane enough to stop. But feelings aren't equations with defined limits. Once the line is crossed, rules no longer matter. Then the tragedy happened. One rainy afternoon, just half an hour after Ethan had left my place, David came home, early, unannounced, with a gaze as cold as the rain outside. I hadn't had time to hide the wine glass on the table. Ethan's scarf was still draped on the chair. David looked around the room quietly. "Did someone come over?" he asked calmly, but with sharpness in his voice. I didn't answer. My heart pounded, panic rising. David stepped out to the balcony. The faint scent of Ethan's cigarette still lingered in the air. He stood in the rain, without an umbrella, and called my name. I followed him outside, barefoot, exposed, carrying nothing but guilt and pain. "I've known for a while, Natalie. You've changed. You smile at your phone. You flinch when I touch you." I knew something wasn't right. My throat tightened. My eyes stung. "It's Ethan, isn't it?" he asked, the first time he'd said his name. I nodded, lightly, but it was enough to shatter everything. We sat in silence for the rest of that night. David wasn't angry. He was just broken. He asked why I hadn't told him sooner, why I hadn't given him a chance to fix things, to love me again. I could only cry, because I wasn't sure if I still loved him, or if I only loved the memories of us. I sat quietly on the sofa as David closed the bedroom door behind him. In this familiar house, I had never felt more lost. The rain continued tapping against the cold iron railings. The half-empty wine glass sat on the table. Ethan's scarf had fallen to the floor. Silent, raw evidence. I had been found out. Not with shouting or accusations like in the movies. Just David's silence and his gaze, which hurt more than 1,000 knives. I didn't cry. I couldn't. My tears had dried up. Or maybe I no longer deserved to cry. In my head, questions played on repeat. What have I done? Why did I let it go this far? Do I truly want Ethan or just the feeling of being alive again? I looked around the room. Our wedding photo still sat on the shelf. David's jacket still hung by the door. The scent of morning coffee lingered faintly. Everything was the same, except me. I remembered David's eyes as he stood in the rain. No anger, no hate, just deep hurt. And that was what broke me. If only he had shouted. If only he had thrown things or cursed me. Maybe I would have been able to breathe. But his silence screamed the loudest, the cry of a man who loved too deeply to know how to hold on. I felt so small, so cowardly. I wanted to scream sorry, but I couldn't speak because I knew sorry wasn't enough. Not now, not anymore. I couldn't blame Ethan. I couldn't blame David. I could only blame myself for letting my heart drift too far from the shore, for letting a strange wind blow away everything I'd spent years building. That night, I didn't sleep. I curled up by the window, listening to the rain until morning. And for the first time in years, I looked into the mirror and saw myself, a woman who had lost both trust and herself. A few days later, I left. David didn't stop me. Ethan disappeared, as if he knew I needed space. I moved into a small rented apartment on the city's edge, where no one knew me, and I didn't have to pretend to be anyone. Each morning, I made coffee, opened the window, and stared into the pale gray sky, wondering if the world had changed since I stepped away from it. The answer was always no. The world still turned, people still loved, still betrayed, still forgave, but I was stuck in a void with no exit. One Saturday afternoon, after a visit to a used bookstore, I found 2 envelopes slipped under my door. No one sends handwritten letters anymore. I knew that. But David and Ethan both chose to write, as if only through ink and paper could they touch the truth of their hearts. I laid both letters on the table, sat across from them as if facing both my past and my present. I opened David's first. His handwriting was still the same, firm, neat, and quiet, just like him. I don't know if you even want to hear from me, but if you're reading this, then maybe some part of you hasn't let go completely. I'm not angry, not anymore. Just sad and hollow, as if a part of my heart was torn away and will never heal. If you choose to come back, even just to search for a piece of what we once had, I'll be here. Not because I'm weak, but because I still love you. Without bitterness. If not, then I hope you find yourself, somewhere, somehow, not living with regret. My hands trembled as I finished. The letter fell from my hands, as if it were my heart crashing to the ground. I didn't deserve that kindness, that love, but I also couldn't lie. My heart was no longer whole with the man who had stood by me for 18 years. Then I opened Ethan's letter. The paper smelled of aged pages. His handwriting slanted, a bit rushed, full of emotion. Unlike David, Ethan always wrote as though whispering, and this time he whispered to my deepest confusion. Natalie, I didn't know whether I should write, but one thing I'm certain of, I couldn't leave without giving you something, even just a few words. I'll be going to France next month to teach. Maybe for a while, maybe forever. But my heart isn't going anywhere. It's staying here, in the place I last saw you, rushing into your house, turning back with eyes full of conflict. I'm not asking you to choose. I'm not asking you to leave or return. I only hope, wherever you are, you'll live as yourself. Not for anyone, not for what happened, because the girl I once loved and the woman I still love today are one and the same, and both deserve to live honestly. I folded both letters and placed them in a drawer, but I didn't lock it. I wanted to read them again, not to choose, but to remember that I had once been loved in two very different ways. That night, I cried, truly cried, for the first time since I left. Not from guilt, not from grief, but from the deep loneliness that comes when you realize, even being loved by two men, I still couldn't love myself. The woman's post ended there. Thousands of comments poured in, people asking what happened next, what decision she made. I searched every follow-up post, read every comment, hoping to satisfy my curiosity. But like everyone else, I never found out her final choice. What about you? What do you think Natalie should have done? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for listening. If you found this story moving, don't forget to hit like, share it, and follow the channel for more stories like this.